Hey there, my name's Daniel. I'm just your regular Joe. A software engineer by profession, living a life that I thought was pretty darn good till a year ago. I had a beautiful wife, Angela, 2 adorable kids, a golden retriever named Benji, and a Victorian house in the peaceful suburbs of Seattle. In my eyes, life was as good as it gets. Let's rewind a bit though. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, raised by the sweetest parents anyone could ask for. They taught me to value love and respect above all. They're not around anymore, but their teachings, they stuck. And those values, they were shattered the day I found out about Angela. But before we get there, let's talk about Angela, my wife, or well, ex-wife now. When we first met, I thought I had hit the jackpot. Angela was a stunning brunette with striking blue eyes that could stop anyone in their tracks. She was a nurse by profession, had a laughter that was infectious, and a spirit that was indomitable. She was my rock, my sanctuary, my everything. Our kids, Sam and Rosie, are the apples of my eyes. Sam is 7 and Rosie, she just turned 5. Angela and I, we brought them up teaching them the same values my parents taught me. Then there was Mark, Angela's gym buddy. A fitness enthusiast, self-proclaimed playboy. With a devil-may-care attitude, Mark was everything I wasn't. He was the kind of guy who would spend hours at the gym, sculpting his body, and evenings at clubs, flaunting it. Angela met him at the local gym, and they quickly became friends. I was happy for Angela. She had found a friend who shared her passion for fitness. I even invited Mark over for dinner a couple of times. But little did I know, this gym buddy was about to turn my world upside down. Mark became a familiar face in our lives. He would drop by our house occasionally after their gym sessions, join us for family barbecues, and even attend our kids' school events. I was glad Angela had a friend outside our usual circle, someone she could bond with over her love for fitness. And me, I was immersed in my work, coding away for the better part of the day, oblivious to the storm that was brewing right under my nose. Mark was the macho type, with his chiseled abs and a flashy smile. I remember Angela joking about his endless string of girlfriends, his Casanova reputation. It all seemed harmless, a topic of light-hearted banter during our dinner conversations. Our house, by the way, is a beautiful Victorian-era home. We fell in love with it the moment we laid our eyes on it. With its sprawling garden and cozy attic, it was our dream home. It held so many memories of our kids' first steps, their first birthdays, our first Christmas as a family. But it also became the backdrop of my biggest nightmare. Let me also tell you about Angela's job. She worked at the Seattle General Hospital, a 30-minute drive from our house. Her schedule was demanding, often involving night shifts and emergencies. But despite her hectic hours, she never missed her gym sessions with Mark. Her dedication was commendable, or so I thought. Somewhere between the kids' bedtime stories, Angela's late-night shifts, and Mark's gym sessions, my happy family was drifting apart. It was a gradual, barely noticeable drift, like a slow creeping fog on a winter morning. I overlooked Angela's frequent shopping sprees, her surprising credit card bills, and the newfound secrecy in her demeanor. I was living in a bubble of ignorance, about to be burst by a harsh revelation. It wasn't until Angela's behavior began to drastically change that the red flags became impossible to ignore. She became distant, always engrossed in her phone, smiling at text messages from Mark. Our shared bank account had a pattern of large, unaccounted withdrawals, all traced back to Angela's credit card. A sense of unease started to settle within me, a gut feeling that something wasn't right. But I wasn't prepared for the bitter truth that was about to unfold. I guess that sets the stage for you, me, the blissfully ignorant husband, Angela, my once loving wife now a stranger, our 2 kids oblivious to the adult's world, and Mark, the playboy gym friend who was much more than just a friend. This was my life, a picture-perfect family portrait hiding a painful secret. Little did I know, my world was about to be turned upside down. Well, to be frank, I wish I had woken up sooner. My denial, or perhaps complacency, allowed Angela and Mark to weave this intricate web of deception. I work as a software developer at Microsoft. Now, that's a job that requires mental gymnastics, and I took pride in my problem-solving skills. But my life's biggest problem was unraveling right in front of me, and I was clueless. The funny part, I actually liked Mark. He was charismatic, funny, and, damn, the man knew his way around a grill. During our BBQs, while I managed the beers, Mark was the self-appointed chef, flipping burgers and serving chicken wings. The kids adored him too. He'd play with them, even help them with their homework sometimes. Let's also talk about where I lived before moving in with Angela. Before Mark entered the picture, I lived in a small apartment in the heart of Seattle. It was comfortable, but nothing compared to the dream we built together. Our current home, a 2-story house in the suburbs, was something we picked together. The tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and the little park around the corner for the kids to play, it was perfect. About Angela and my kids, Angela, a registered nurse, was the most loving person I knew. She was gentle and kind, always caring for others. We met at a cafe, and it was love at first sight. We married within a year and were blessed with 2 wonderful kids, Lily and Jake. Lily, with her mom's blonde hair, and Jake, who inherited my stubborn chin, were our pride and joy. Angela's job at the hospital was demanding. She was often on her feet for hours, tending to patients, comforting their families. And still, she managed to keep up with Mark's gym schedule. I admired her commitment, her seemingly boundless energy. As for Mark, he was an architect by profession. His firm was responsible for some of the most iconic buildings in downtown Seattle. He was successful and, of course, popular with the ladies. What I didn't know was that he was a little too popular with my wife. I thought we were a happy family, a tight-knit unit living in our dream house. But when Angela's phone calls became hushed whispers, when I discovered receipts of expensive gifts that I never received, when Mark's presence in our lives became more constant than I was comfortable with, I couldn't help but feel a pang of suspicion. As the days turned into weeks, I realized Angela was pulling away from me. We stopped having our morning coffee together. She stopped asking me about my day. Our conversations became superficial. Our marital bed felt cold and distant. I felt a gnawing emptiness creep into my life. It was then, in the midst of this brewing storm, that I found a credit card statement that would shatter my blissful ignorance. My life, as I knew it, was about to crumble. The day I found the credit card statement, I'd been clearing some old files from our home office. It was lying there, inconspicuous among utility bills and medical insurance papers. It was a credit card I didn't recognize. The bill was addressed to Angela, so I opened it, assuming it was a clerical error or maybe a new card she'd applied for. But when I looked at the statement, my blood ran cold. There were multiple transactions for luxury hotel bookings, high-end boutiques, and expensive restaurants, all under Angela's name, all charged to my account. Feeling a sudden rush of anxiety, I decided to confront Angela. But just as I was about to walk out of the room, I noticed another piece of paper stuck at the bottom of the pile. It was a receipt from a men's luxury watch store. A watch worth thousands of dollars had been purchased under Angela's name. The pieces of the puzzle started fitting together, but the image they formed was something I wasn't ready to face. Despite my suspicions, confronting Angela wasn't easy. She was my wife, the mother of my children. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation for all of this, but deep down, I knew I was grasping at straws. When I finally gathered the courage to confront her, the confession came tumbling out. Angela admitted to the affair with Mark. They had started as gym buddies, spotting each other during workouts, going for post-workout meals together. Slowly, the friendship morphed into something more. Angela confessed they had been seeing each other for months. The hotels, the gifts, the meals, it was all for Mark. My heart shattered as she spoke, each word stabbing me like a knife. What hurt more was the realization that Mark, my friend, was part of this betrayal. He had been in our home, played with our kids, and all the while, he was sleeping with my wife. As I grappled with the enormity of their deception, I knew one thing for sure: I was not going to let them off the hook easily. Angela tried to justify her actions, blaming it on our fading romance, her stressful job, and what she called my emotional unavailability. But I wasn't ready to shoulder the blame for her conscious choices. She was the one who had strayed, lied, and cheated. She was the one who had torn our family apart. And for what? For some fleeting moments of pleasure with a man who didn't even respect the sanctity of our home. While Angela wept and pleaded for forgiveness, I could only see the betrayal in her eyes. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, was now a stranger to me. Our home felt like a hollow shell, filled with memories of a life that was now tainted with deceit. But even in the midst of this chaos, I felt a strange sense of calm. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I could finally see the reality of my situation. I knew I had to fight back. I had to reclaim my life, my dignity. And so, I started planning my revenge. While the pain of betrayal was fresh, I knew I had to act rationally. I had to be discreet and methodical, just like they were. I hired a private investigator and started collecting evidence of their deceit. Photographs, hotel bookings, gifts, everything that could prove their affair. I knew that if I had to fight this battle, I had to arm myself with undeniable proof. As the days turned into weeks, I became obsessed with collecting evidence. Each new piece of information fueled my anger and determination. I was ready to expose them, to bring their world crashing down. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for my children, for their future. Angela and Mark had chosen their path, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. After weeks of gathering evidence, I finally had enough. My lawyer confirmed that the proof was substantial and advised me to file a lawsuit against both Angela and Mark. The case was twofold: a defamation lawsuit against Angela for her false accusations against me, and a lawsuit against Mark for alienation of affection. I wasn't just going to let them walk away after ruining my life. I wanted them to pay. While the lawsuits were underway, I also decided to confront Mark. We met at the same gym where he had started his affair with my wife. I remember the look of shock on his face when I walked up to him. The audacity of the man. He tried to play it off, act surprised, even tried to apologize, but I wasn't buying it. "Look, it wasn't supposed to get so serious," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. His feeble excuses were infuriating. I wanted to punch him, but I knew I had to keep my cool. "You know what's serious, Mark? The lawsuit that's coming your way," I said, keeping my voice steady. The color drained from his face as he stared at me in disbelief. I relished the moment, watching him squirm. The tables had turned. While the confrontation with Mark was satisfying, the lawsuit process was slow and tedious. It felt like a never-ending saga of court visits, meetings with lawyers, and sleepless nights. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered Angela's confession, her betrayal, and it fueled me to keep going. As the case progressed, the truth became evident for everyone to see. My solid evidence. Angela's confession, it all added up. Angela and Mark had thought they were invincible, but their world was crumbling down. While the legal battle continued, I made sure to take care of my kids. I didn't want them to suffer because of their mother's mistakes. Despite everything, I reassured them that they were loved, that we would get through this together. It was hard, but their resilience inspired me. Months later, we finally had our day in court. I watched as Angela and Mark were called to the stand, their faces pale, their composure shaken. As I sat there, listening to the judge declare the verdict, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Angela was found guilty of defamation and was ordered to pay a substantial amount in damages. Mark, on the other hand, was hit with a hefty fine for his actions. As the judge declared the verdict, I felt a sense of vindication. They had thought they could get away with it, but they had been proven wrong. Despite the hardships, I knew I had done the right thing. I had fought for my rights, for my dignity. I had shown them that they couldn't trample over me, that I was not a pushover. As I walked out of the courtroom, a free man, I knew I had won. Not just the legal battle, but also the battle for my self-respect. In the end, Angela and Mark got what they deserved. They had cheated, lied, and deceived, and now they had to pay the price. As for me, I was ready to start a new chapter in my life. A chapter without Angela, without betrayal. A chapter where I was the hero of my own story.